Our Father in heaven, we're so very grateful for the opportunity we have to be here today in this class. We're grateful for Brother Allen and that he has taken the time to speak to us and share his wealth of knowledge with us. We're so grateful for Stephanie for the time and tremendous effort that she puts into recovery to help all of us through these difficult times in our lives. We ask for a special blessing to be with us, that thy spirit might be in tune with us, that our hearts and our minds might be touched by those things that are said and shared today, that we will know of the love that thou hast for each and every one of us, including our addicted loved ones. Again, we're so grateful for those that are attending this class today. For any that are new to this class, we welcome you and pray that you too will find thy spirit within the walls of this room. These things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Claudia, for that beautiful prayer. I'm always so appreciative of those who give prayers. And thank you, Roger, for turning on the recording. Just a reminder, as you logged onto this, you were able to discover that this class is being recorded. So it's a little different format than what we usually have. So for those of you who are new, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Stephanie Eastman, and I am a facilitator of this. I'm the facilitator of this class. We work on working through codependency and all the feelings and the challenges that come with behaving in codependent ways. And we usually work through a book called Healing Through Christ. In fact, that's what I call our class, is Healing Through Christ. So we are a faith-based recovery class, and it's just so great to have you here. So I hope that everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day. I certainly did, and just want to honor you as mothers. And sometimes Mother's Day can be really tough too. And so just want to let you know that I'm glad you're here and that you're here to show up for yourself. So today's class, before I introduce our speaker, I want to let you know that today's class will be a little bit interactive. Roger is probably going to pause throughout his presentation and check in with us, maybe ask us questions. And I did send out a handout that Roger just so graciously put together. Oh, I saw, it looks like Jim has that. So good job. Good job. If you don't have that printed, I did send it out last night on an email after I sent the email out for this link. And if you can either print that or maybe have it available to you. We probably will put it up on the screen at some point, but I also, if you have it handy, that would be great. And also something to take notes on, because really the most important part of this is going to be the impressions that you receive as he's presenting and as other people might be asking questions about what's your thing that your higher power is trying to communicate to you and reveal to you. So if you have questions during the presentation, go ahead and just put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Most likely we'll have an opportunity at the end of class to ask questions. And like I said, if Roger stops it for a little bit, we can ask the questions there. He'll be checking in with us a little bit. Okay, so I am very grateful, humble, thrilled, all the feelings to be able to introduce Roger Allen. Roger has been somebody that I've followed at Education Week. And if any of you have been to Education Week, there's a gazillion classes to take. And it's very, they only get the best of the best to teach at Education Week. And so, and usually a speaker will probably only teach one class. But if I remember last time, Roger, I think you were on at least 3 classes last time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, because I was in those classes and I was writing notes ferociously, thinking of all the things you were sharing that really pertain to our class. And so I'm super grateful. His presentations to me, the way that I've felt is he's been so laser clear on things that have been hard for me that have been kind of gray and murky as a codependent. But he's laser clear and yet has such a tenderness about him that I feel like what he's taught, I've been able to implement because he's given me a path to do that. that is kind and respectful, and he's modeled that. And I know that you'll feel that today too as he presents to us. Let me tell you a little bit about Roger. Roger K. Allen has a PhD in counseling psychology. He's an author, a speaker, a content creator in personal development and relationships. He co-founded the Human Development Institute, which provided individual, marriage, and family therapy. What he became best known for was creating in-depth programs in personal development that had life-changing impact on thousands of people. His background in the field of organizational behavior management consulting and leadership development led him to co-found the Center for Organizational Design to help leaders create and sustain high-performance organizations. And when I think of leaders, I don't just think of business leaders. I think of the principles that we use to lead in our families also and in other significant relationships. So empowering individuals to do their best work. And I know that all of us are here because we want to do our best work in our families. And so I'm really, really grateful that this is something that he can help us with. I was privileged to receive his resume, and I wanted to point out a couple of things I didn't know about Roger. He's got lots of products I didn't know about. And if any of you saw the email that I sent out last week, it gave a link to his webpage, and I've scrolled through that, and my goodness, there's so many valuable resources there, many that are free, the others that aren't free, very little cost. And he also has a YouTube channel that I've watched several videos on and just love them. So here's some of the products that he's created though, that really stood out to me. The Hero's Choice, leading from the inside out. And isn't that what we're doing in our recovery? We're changing ourselves so that we can lead outwardly, but it really happens inwardly first. Raising responsible, emotionally mature children. Master your self-defeating emotions. My goodness, that might be one I'm going to have to buy and maybe have you come back and share with us at another time. Claiming your power to live a happy and abundant life. Creating a happy marriage and loving relationship. Managing stress and building resilience, which is one of the things we're working on in this class. We're striving to build strength into our relationships instead of fragility. The power of deep listening. And then another one that was one of his training products called the Trust Factor, creating win-win relationships. So I think you can tell from some of the topics that he's authored and created products on, he has a wealth of information on the exact things that we're trying to learn in this class. And I just want to let you know how grateful I am, Roger, that you're here. This isn't the first time I've learned from you. It won't be the last, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce you to my class. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's been such a pleasure these last couple of weeks or so that we've been corresponding. I'm grateful that you reached out, and it's so nice to get to know you. And I appreciate so much the work you're doing and that all of you are doing on the subject of codependency and your personal growth and development and working at your relationships, improving your relationships as well. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I know what you have in common is you're in a relationship, each of you, with somebody who's suffering in some way. Now, sometimes addicts don't recognize they're suffering because they have lots of ways of distracting themselves, but truly you're in relationships with people who are suffering, whether from an addiction or from some form of mental illness. And so as Stephanie invited me to do this, I kind of went through, particularly yesterday, as I was beginning to think about what I wanted to do, various thoughts, various topics. And I settled on, what role do you play? And if you have, in fact, I'm going to, if I can, for just a moment, I want to, let's see, I want to share the screen. Hang on. I send a handout. How many of you have the handout? Most of you have the handout. Okay, let me just just share, if I can, this screen. Let's see, it's all right, for those that may not have the handout, I'll give you a quick walk through it, and then we'll come back. I'll just talk you through the different concepts. But what I hope to come up with was a relatively simple template to offer some structure and guidance for those who are going through or who are living, who are going through a process of codependence, who are codependent, and living with somebody who is, again, suffering, struggling with mental health problems or addictions or whatever. And so, again, this is a relatively simple template. It's certainly not more important or than so many resources that you have that you've probably already read. In fact, I want you to know that I really respect the journey that you've been on. And I want you to know that I'm a fellow sojourner, that I certainly have my issues and challenges, and am trying to grow myself continually and trying to improve my relationships continually. But I respect your journey. I respect your experience, your wisdom. I know you bring as much to the table or much to the table. And so we really could make this interactive, and I could learn a lot from you. That's something that I've certainly learned from my clients through the years. I have learned so much from them as I've sat across from people talking about the life wrestles that they have been going through. But anyway, so I put this template together, and you'll notice the title of it, What Do You Do That Helps Rather Than Hurts When Dealing with a Loved One with an Addiction or Serious Mental Illness? And I've incorporated 6 different principles that I'd like to talk about today. Number 1, stay in your lane. Grow your own sense of self. Learn to process your key moments. We'll be doing a little bit deeper dive into these. So those have to do with self. As Stephanie was talking about, inside out, I think that we can't be there, and we can't be supportive, and we can't be helpful to our loved ones unless we're coming from a good place. And these 3 particularly have to do with coming from a good place. And then the next 3, the last 3, have to do with others. They have to do with how we show up in our relationships. They have to do with how we communicate with people. And number 4, I think of as cultivate empathy, instill and allow responsibility, and speak truthfully. So as I think about it from my perspective, my point of view, these are 3 or 6 critical principles, and let's jump into them if we could. We'll go through them one at a time. And again, any one of these could be easily a half day, even a full day workshop. And again, I recognize that you have already been studying. You know a lot about these principles, but let's start with stay in your lane. Let me invite you to do something. I would like you to take out a sheet of paper, draw a column or draw a line down the middle. You don't have to go clear to the end of the page, but take out a sheet of paper, draw a column or a line partway down the page so that you're separating this page into 2 different columns. And in the left-hand column, I want you to write your name, your own name. And in the right-hand column, I want you to write the name of a loved one whom you're concerned about. Somebody in your life, a child, a spouse that is struggling with an addiction of some kind, somebody that may be dealing with a mental health issue. So the reason that I ask you to do that is there's a boundary between the 2 of you. There's a boundary between you and this loved one. And I like to think of a boundary as a property line. And when I say a property line, it's important to be very clear about what I own and what this other person owns. What are you responsible for on your side of this line? What is this other person, your loved one, responsible for on their side of the line? It's really important, I think, for our own mental health and to be able to be empowering in the lives of the people we care about. To be clear about our responsibility? Do you know what you own and what you don't own? What do you need to allow your loved one to own? Because the whole definition of codependence, in fact, the way I define codependency is under responsibility for myself. I'm codependent when I am under responsible for myself and or over responsible for another. Let me just give you a few examples or a little more definition of what I mean. When I talk about being under responsible for myself, one form of that is being dependent on other people. And when I'm dependent, I'm inviting somebody to step over that line that you've just drawn. I'm inviting somebody to cross that boundary and take over for me in my life and tell me what to do. I don't trust my own resourcefulness. I don't trust my own intuition, my thoughts, my feelings. I need somebody who I consider to be bigger, stronger, whatever than me to take over. That's what I mean by dependency. And that's one form of codependency. A second form of codependency or under responsibility is pleasing. Wow, when we're socialized, we have such a tendency to want to please other people. So pleasing is another form. When I let other people's opinions become more important than my own. When I'm living to avoid rejection, to seek acceptance from other people. Again, the locus of control isn't inside of me, but I'm living my life to please somebody else. A third form of under responsibility I call martyrdom. And martyrdom is when I allow the needs of other people to become so important that they consume my own. I don't take good care of myself in a relationship because I'm always being helpful and serving other people. And over time, I feel like a martyr and I feel burned out. So those are three ways of being under responsible for myself. That whenever I'm under responsible, again, I'm inviting other people to cross a boundary. I'm not taking full responsibility for myself. There are two ways of being over responsible for other people. And one of those is control, by being controlling, dictating, telling, directing, nagging, telling people how they need to be living their lives instead of giving them ownership or allowing them the space to take ownership of their own lives. The second way we have a tendency to be over responsible for others is through caretaking. And certainly that's a typical definition. That's how we oftentimes think about codependency. Codependents are people who are helpers. They're people usually who are compassionate and love others and want to serve and want to do good to others. So we step in and we help in a lot of different ways. But so anyway, those are two ways that we can be over responsible. So I invite you to think about, in what ways might you be under responsible for yourself? In what ways do you tend to be over responsible for your loved one? How might you be over responsible? What might you be doing if you respect that boundary? If I were to ask you, and we don't have time, but you could go a little bit later today, write down what is everything that you're responsible for on your side of the fence. What is everything that your loved one is responsible for on their side of the fence? And what would it be like for you to step up fully to your responsibility and let go of some of the responsibility that you might be taking for your loved one? And I don't mean by that to be callous and uncaring, but you have to own your responsibility. Let your loved one own their responsibility. I was talking to a woman, doing a little bit of counseling, in fact, with a woman just earlier this week. I'll call her Margaret. And she was talking about ongoing relationship with her son who has wrestled with addictions. In fact, he's been in prison. She took him to see a judge this week. They were late. And the judge put something on his door which said, I'll call the boy Rex. Rex, you know, you're late, you're not taking your treatment and your probation seriously. I've put a warrant out for your arrest. And the bail is set at $500,000. And what happened was the boy came home, he packed his car and he fled. And Mother doesn't know where he is. And we were talking about, okay, Margaret, what is that like for you? What is this experience? And then we started talking about what are you responsible for? And what are you not responsible for here? Let's get really clear about staying in your lane and what it means to be in your lane. What are you responsible for? What are you not responsible for? And, you know, there's a lot of grief that we can feel as we let go of being over responsible for other people. It takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of belief. It takes a lot of faith in them, and it takes a lot of courage on our part. But we did a little process, and the process was, well, I first had her list responsibilities, and she was listing things like my thoughts and my feelings and my behavior, and I'm responsible for my goals, and I'm responsible for where I put my energy, and I'm responsible for how I handle the crises in my life, and on and on and on. But I asked her to do another exercise, and I called the exercise Give Back, Take Back. And I said, I want you to put a chair in front of you right now. Even though we were doing this on Zoom, just put a chair in front of you right now, Margaret. And I want you to talk to Rex. And I want you to take back from him. I want you to give back to him what you have been carrying that is not yours. Metaphorically, I want you to give it back, and I want you to use those words. Rex, I give back to you responsibility for blah, 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 blah. You know, just invited her to look, to give back responsibility. And then I said, now I want to know what you're willing to take back responsibility for. What responsibility do you need to take back, Margaret, from your son? In what ways have you allowed your son to be over responsible or to carry responsibilities that really belong to you? And she said things like, for my mental health, for my well-being, for my happiness, I take that back. I'm responsible for that. Anyway, that is what I mean by stay in your lane. And again, we could talk about that for a long time, but it's just really important for each of us to be clear about what we are responsible for and what we are not responsible for. Does that make sense to people? Just nod if that's making sense. Okay, all right. Give back, take back. I think a very powerful thing for us to do, particularly as people who tend to be over codependent. And by the way, I'm codependent. And I recognized it when I first went away to school. It was such a relief to me. I went to a small college in Utah called the College of Eastern Utah, which was about 120 miles from my home. I felt such a relief. And I realized over time, oh my goodness, I had been carrying such a burden for my parents. I wouldn't say I was playing an active role in the middle of their relationship, but I felt the burden of dynamics, unfinished business, and dynamics that were going on in their relationship. And it was such a relief to me to go to college and let go of that and be free for about 4 years. Then I got married. And of course, then we start raising children. And then those tendencies tend to creep back, right? But it's really critical to be very, very clear. What am I responsible for? What am I not responsible for? And stay in my lane. If we're not only going to heal ourselves, but for the purpose of healing that other person whose name you wrote down as well. So let me go on to number 2. Number 2 is to grow your sense of self. So however your loved one is doing, whether they're doing well, whether they aren't doing well, and it's probably a bit of a roller coaster, but however that loved one is doing, or however those other people in your life are doing, I want to suggest that it is absolutely critical for us to not only be helpful, well, to grow ourselves, but also to be helpful in our relationships with those loved ones, to grow our sense of self. And if I can let me just share my screen with you again. Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay. So this is a model. Can you see this model?
Yes, and Roger, sometimes we can hear your voice clearly. When you look up, sometimes we don't hear it as much as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, when I look up, you don't hear it, or when I look
Wait.
down, you don't hear it?
Look down, we hear it. When you look up, we don't.
Okay, okay, I appreciate you telling me that. All right. So this is to become a loving, mature person. I believe there are three pieces to the process. And of course, we don't have time to talk about all of this today, but I think there are three keys. Number one is integrity,
Okay,
which
pause.
is,
I have a question, Roger.
Yes.
What we see is we see OneDrive and we see you highlighting a strong sense of self. Is that the page we're supposed to see?
No.
Okay,
Can you not see a slide that says integrity?
we don't see the slide.
Ah, I'm sorry. And I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to bring it up either, so.
We did at one time, Stephanie, and
It flashed on, but that's
Yeah.
not what it's at
It was
now.
up for a second, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
I think, Roger, if you minimize the screen.
There you go. It's right there now.
Okay, can you now see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I want to suggest, three main pieces to become a loving and more mature person. One is living from a strong sense of self, which I call integrity, living from kindness and respect, which is empathy. And by the way, notice that those are the two components of a good relationship. In order to have a strong relationship, I need to have a strong sense of myself, and I need to have empathy and compassion for this other person with whom I'm in a relationship. And then agency, and by agency, I mean my willingness to own my own thoughts, feelings, and behavior. I want to talk for just a moment about what I mean by integrity or strong sense of self, because I think it's so critical for us to develop a sense of self if we're going to be able to play a helpful role even in the lives of those people in our lives who are addicts. Your emotional and spiritual well-being depends upon a strong sense of self. How clear are you about what you believe, what you value, what you think, what you want, what you feel, what you stand for? That's what I mean by a strong sense of self. Sometimes when we're codependent, we have more of a sense of what other people expect of us or need from us, and we don't develop that inner core of integrity that I'm talking about right now. And it's okay. Or we believe what we've been socialized to believe. Can you hear me okay, Stephanie? We believe what we've been socialized to believe and value and think and feel and want. But at some point in our lives, we have to take ownership of all of that. I have a sister. Let me just tell you a little bit about my sister Rolane. She's married to a really good man. His name is Kent. And, Kent left our faith, left our religion very early in their relationship. And Kent and I are actually very good friends. I'd consider him to be one of my best friends. And so he and I have spent a lot of time talking. I'm close to Kent. But it's also been very difficult for my sister, not only because he left the faith, but because he has really worked very, very hard to convince her that what she believes is not correct, that she's been deceived. He's put a tremendous amount of pressure on her through the years to join him, to leave the faith as well. And it's only because Rolane has been able to develop a very strong sense of self. She's thought deeply about what she believes, what she values, what she feels, what she thinks, what she wants. She's been able to assert that with him. She's been able to come from her own integrity while at the same time having compassion and care for what he thinks and feels and so on. She has not disrespected him. She's allowed him to be on his journey, but she's also been willing to validate herself. Let's look at a few of the other bullet points here. I trust and validate myself more than seeking validation from other people. That's what it means to have a strong sense of self. That validation needs to be inside out, not outside in. I know what I desire. I have a strong sense of my own vision. and where I'm headed in life. I'm not just drifting, but I have clarity of purpose. I act from my why. I have a sense of purpose. I can be real, authentic, vulnerable. I can communicate with people openly and truthfully. I can engage in honest, sometimes hard conversations. My father and I co-formed the center, or the Human Development Institute many, many years ago in Denver. And he was kind of a passive player, meaning, I don't know, he was a very popular man, a very, very good speaker, and developed a number of courses of his own that he taught through the years. But there were some points at which he and I disagreed. And even though I loved him dearly, I had to learn, and it wasn't always easy, to sit down and have some hard conversations with him about his thoughts and values and direction, my thoughts and values. My sister Relaine has had to have some very hard conversations with her husband about what she values and thinks, and engage in honest, sometimes hard conversations that we would sometimes rather avoid. I can also set boundaries and step up to harmful behavior. And by the way, that's particularly important for people who are codependent. If there are others in your life who are not respectful of you, who are even harmful in their behavior, it is important to be able to set boundaries and stand up to that behavior. I think of strong sense of self also as supporting myself and coming from self-compassion, learning to nurture myself, to do things to meet my basic needs, to know that I'm important enough, not only other people around me, but I'm important enough to take care of myself and to give myself the gift of compassion. I just stopped sharing. Can you see me again? Okay. All right, but that's number 2. Number 2 is to develop a strong sense of self. And by the way, I want to say that's a lifetime journey. That's not something you do overnight. That's not something you do by reading a single book. That's not something you do in one conversation. This is a lot of the emotional work of life, developing that sense of self. But in order to show up in a way, even for your loved one, in a way that is helpful, I think developing that sense of self is critical, is absolutely important. Would you agree with me? Okay, just, yeah, give me a thumbs up or not if you agree. And I know I'm moving through these without, let me go on to number 3. And by the way, when I think of Christ, when I think of the Savior, he was somebody that had a strong sense of self. Would you agree? Very compassionate, very loving, very serve other people, but he also knew who he was, his purpose, what he was about in his life. And I think that God, our Father, wants us to be people of integrity and people who have a strong sense of ourselves as well. Number 3, process your key moments. Process your key moments. A key moment I describe as a circumstance or an event that's hard, in which I'm triggered, in which I feel vulnerable, or I feel anxious in some way. And we have key moments every day, by the way. And we certainly have lots of key moments with our loved one, who is an addict, or our loved one who's wrestling with some serious mental health challenges. So my question for you, in fact, if you can turn the page over, the handout that I've given you, there is a diagram at the top of the page. And you'll notice that it starts with a key moment, and then let me just kind of walk you through this. Do enough of you have it? Okay, yeah, so it starts with a key moment. And a key moment, when a key moment occurs, I have thoughts and feelings. I have an inner experience that consists of thoughts and feelings. You'll notice that there is a moment of choice. And the moment of choice is a moment when I make a decision about how I'm going to respond. Now, frankly, most of the time we make a decision, that decision is unconscious. We're not consciously aware. We're on automatic pilot. We just react more than choosing how to respond. So we make a decision about how we're going to respond. And I want you to notice that we can move in one of two directions. One direction, if we react from fear, we move into dominate, accommodate, or avoid, one of 4 basic communication styles. Dominators during conflict are fighters. And there are lots of ways we fight. This is a place where we could have a little bit of a discussion, but I won't, I want to keep moving. But how do we fight? We fight by arguing, we fight by defending, we fight by yelling, we fight by overpowering, we fight by, seeking to get our way. Some people are accommodators. And in fact, codependents are more likely to be accommodators. We yield, we give in. We want other people around us to be happy and to be pleased. So we suppress our own needs and our own feelings. We retreat, we run emotionally. And avoiders are people that, want to believe that everything is okay, or pretend that everything is okay when in fact it may not be. So when we react from fear, again, usually unconsciously, we have a tendency to move into run or fight or ignore, dominate, accommodate, or avoid. And notice the consequences. It feels unsafe. It builds mistrust and ill will. We are defensive, reactive. It leads to power struggles and a sense of us versus them and win-lose interactions. Those are the consequences. And those consequences, by the way, set up new, similar key moments. On the other hand, when we have those thoughts and feelings and become aware that we're in the middle of a key moment, at that moment of choice, if we choose to act from trust and from love and from faith, we can interrupt the negative pattern and respond in a more healthy way for ourselves and for other people. And notice that those responses have to do with empathy and honesty and responsibility. Well, let me share a couple of stories. I'm going to go back to Margaret that I talked about earlier, and her son Rex. And when they drove back home from, the office of the judge that had posted on the wall that he was now, the warrant was out for his arrest, what do you think Rex did? What do addicts typically do? He ran, right? He escaped. He avoided. As a matter of fact, there are so many ways that addicts use and so many ways all of us use to avoid our feeling. We don't want to deal with the feelings that accompany our key moments. They tend to be grungy. It doesn't feel good. And so rather than confront and rather than deal with the feelings, the fear, the anxiety that was coming up inside of him, he packed his car and he ran. And where he's gone, his mother doesn't really know. Well, I was talking to his mother, Margaret. And so I said, Margaret, the first thing you need to do is slow down here and let's identify that inner, those thoughts and those feelings, what's going on inside of you. And I said, I don't want you to speak. I want you to be quiet. And I want you to close your eyes. I want you to go inside. And I want you simply to notice what you feel right now. That's what so oftentimes we need to learn to do to process our key moments. We're so quick to want to rid ourselves of them, to even challenge the thoughts behind them. But I want to suggest that our woundedness, we're only going to heal from our woundedness as we can become aware of that woundedness inside, as we can bring some love and some compassion to that woundedness instead of always wanting to distract, to scroll our phones, to go to social media, to get involved in video games, to go shopping. There are many, many ways that I use and many ways that all of us use to distract ourselves from what we're feeling. Well, when I talk about step number 3 of processing your key moments, I'm talking about doing the hard work of learning to process what's going on inside of me when those challenges, those events, and those circumstances occur in our lives. I want to share a story of a friend of mine. His name is Jack. And Jack was in the room of his son, in their basement, sitting on his son's bed. And the two of them got involved in this real argument. I mean, Jack said it was just escalating. And his son finally stopped and said, "Dad, do you know what I want right now? I want to talk to my bishop." Well, and of course, in the LDS community, a bishop is like a pastor, a minister. It's a person, you probably know, it's a person that's the head of a congregation. He said, "What I want right now is to talk to my bishop." And Jack's immediate thought was, wow, that's the best idea this boy's had all night. And then immediately after, he realized, well, I am his bishop. And Jack said, "Give me just a minute." And he literally walked out into the hallway. And by the way, part of what we have to do is we have to learn new, better patterns for interrupting our thoughts and our feelings, challenging our thoughts and our feelings. And Jack had to go through a little process. I mean, what had he been feeling? He had been feeling angry. He had been feeling aggrieved. He had been feeling frustrated. He had been feeling fearful for his son. He had been thinking things like, this boy is disobedient. This boy doesn't know what he's talking about. I can't get him to listen to me. I know best. Okay, those are the kind of thoughts and feelings that were going on in his mind. When he stepped out into that hallway, it shifted. Suddenly, he shifted his physiology, his being. He calmed his feelings. He let go of some of the anxiety, some of the anger. Not all of it, it's still there. He started to challenge some of his thoughts. He took upon himself the mantle of being that boy's bishop. And he walked back in that room and he sat down on the bed once again. And he said, "Let's keep talking. And this time I'm your bishop." And his boy kept saying many of the same things, but as their time went on, he just opened his heart to his father. And at times, Jack says he was a little defensive. He wanted to defend himself. But he didn't defend himself. He just continued to listen and let his son open up and pour his heart out. He gave up his need to fix him, to change him, to tell him what he needed to do, to defend himself. He was just being willing to be a safe place for his son. He said at the end of that, and I want you to see on this diagram, that was a moment of choice for Jack. And at that moment of choice, rather than reacting out of fear, he chose to act from trust and from love and from faith. And he said, at the end of that conversation, my son and I stood and embraced for the first time in years. And there was a unity and a closeness between the two of us that we had not felt since he was a much younger boy. Well, Jack made a decision in a moment of choice. In spite of all of those thoughts and all of those feelings that were swirling around inside of him, he made a choice to handle that key moment in a new way. So when I talk about as step number 3 here, when I talk about step number 3, process your key moments, we all need to learn how to process these difficult events. And again, I want to share with you, I know you're on that journey and I know you're learning these lessons. In different ways. I want to share that that's why Christ said, turn the other cheek. He didn't say, I don't believe, turn the other cheek, because he wants us to be meek. Well, he does want us to be meek and humble, but because he wants us to become non-reactive. He wants us to learn to take responsibility for our emotional reactions and to learn to make choices, respond, instead of simply react when we're triggered. And that's what it means to process your key moments. Are you with me? We okay? All right. That is all about self. And what time is it? It's 12:46. We could pause for a moment if anybody has or we could go on and ask a question. I'll leave a little time for questions at the end. Which would you prefer? Stephanie?
Well, let's, we have one question in the chat.
Okay.
I'll ask it to you, and if you'd rather save it for the end, we can do that. Question about triggers. Are triggers any moment of something hard, or is it more of an indirect thing? Or can triggers be an actual event, not a perceived event? Not sure if that makes sense. That was from Melanie.
Yeah, no, very good question. It's
Can I
an actual
clarify, 'cause
event
I
and
didn't
a
know how to type
Oh,
it.
sorry. Yeah, Melody.
Yeah, can I give you an example? Because that's like a confusing question. I couldn't figure out how to type
Okay.
it. So like in my mind, like for some reason, and this is what I want you to tell me if it's not true. Like I have this perception of triggers as like an indirect thing. Like for example, like an example of one that I think I have is like Disneyland, for example. There's nothing inherently like scary about Disneyland except that I've had bad experiences,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of like an indirect or maybe intangible. But then there's other things like if you get a failed drug screen, that's like a very tangible thing. Like I didn't necessarily consider that like a trigger. Like in my mind, that's like a very clear like event. But I mean that there's a react. So that's what I mean. Like the
No,
difference.
that's a
between
really
those
good
kinds of- Are they
question.
both triggers?
Yes.
Or what does that mean?
Well,
Yeah.
it's a trigger if you react emotionally, if you feel anxious, if you feel upset, if you feel vulnerable. So when you go to Disneyland, those rides might be perfectly safe, but your perception is they're not safe because it brings up all this emotion inside of you. You know what I mean? And so that's a key moment. Now, when you get a result back and it's a positive drug test, and you're not emotionally engaged in it, you're just very matter of fact, okay, it's what I was expecting, and I figured that this is probably what was going to be coming, and it's not creating this anxiety, this vulnerability, this, you're not reacting internally, emotionally to it, then it's a situation you have to deal with. You've still got to decide how you're going to go to this, whomever, your loved one, and talk about it or deal with it, or what kind of consequences and how you're going to hold them responsible or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's a key moment if it's upsetting to you. Does that make sense?
And it would be considered a trigger if it's upsetting. Like
Right.
that's like the guideline.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we all have triggers every day, and sometimes they're mild. I spilled orange juice all over this morning. Well, that's a pretty mild trigger, but it's a trigger, upset. Some are big. Some are really big. So, we may have 10 or 12 of these every day. Some of them are big, some of them are small. Learning to handle them. A driver pulls out in front of you. It creates anxiety. It creates a moment of upset and anger. And that's a key moment. I believe that we grow emotionally. We grow in emotional intelligence as we learn to manage and handle, become aware of, and manage and handle these key moments. Does that make sense? Yeah. But what defines it is the impact it has on me. So, okay, let's keep moving. So those are the three that have to do with self. Boy, I'd love to do a quiz. What's number one? Stay in your lane, right? Stay in your lane. Number two, grow your sense of self. Number three, learn to process your key moments. And again, I share this with you knowing this is a lifetime journey, knowing that it's not something you do from night to day. It's an ongoing journey that all of us are engaged in. Let's move on to those that have to do with other. And these are communication skills. But I want to suggest these are ways of showing up with this other, whatever name you wrote, that can be helpful rather than harmful. Now, I want to share that these are communication skills, but they're more than communication skills. They're principles of human relations. And as we internalize the principles and as we understand these principles, then they influence how we talk, how we communicate to our loved ones. So number 4, principle number 4 that we're talking about is cultivate empathy. Cultivate empathy. Can you see your loved one deeply? And what might be the unmet needs that are being expressed by their angry or acting out words or behavior? We so often look at the behavior. There's a lot that's going on underneath that behavior. And I don't share this with you as a way of enabling. I'm not encouraging you to simply be enabling of that behavior. You may need to set limits and boundaries. That's important. But I think it can be very helpful to know that usually whenever we're engaged in conflict with somebody, or whenever we're getting really negative communication and vibes coming from somebody, there's an unmet need. Can I identify that unmet need? I had this discussion with my running buddy recently, who's my bishop, and he was talking about his son. And his son is being quite rebellious, and he and his wife are really concerned about it. And he has a girlfriend, and they're concerned about this girlfriend and what's going on with the girlfriend. And one of the things I said to him was, take a look at what might be the needs that she's meeting. What needs might she be meeting in him? Just to be aware of those can give you some compassion, but can also help you know how to deal with him. Because we have a need for connection. All of us have a need for connection. And sometimes our negative acting out behavior is coming from an unmet need for connection. And sometimes it's a need for importance. Wow, does this girl make him feel important? Sometimes it's a need for security. Sometimes it's a need for excitement and adventure. You know, there are many different needs that we have. If we can see the unmet need that's underneath the addictive behavior or underneath the acting out behavior, it can help us develop a little more compassion and even open up new options for knowing how to interact, how to deal, how to communicate. Can you soften your heart when you listen to somebody and avoid the tendency to defend? Just listen. I mean, it reminds me about a year ago, my wife and I went on this cruise with my siblings. I thought it was great. We had a great time. And I can remember a couple of weeks later, she said, well, I didn't enjoy that cruise all that much. Oh, my immediate reaction was what do you mean you didn't enjoy that cruise? You know, that was a great cruise. We had a wonderful time. No, Roger, be quiet. Let people have their thoughts. Let people have their opinions. Don't think that you have to step in and correct them. Defend your point of view. Prove your point of view right. Learn to listen. Learn to allow. Learn to grant space to people, even people who are in the middle of, addiction and problems. The most important skill we can learn. And usually codependents are pretty good at this. Well, I don't know, we get hooked, we feel bad. And when we feel bad, we want to fix. We want to step in and make things better. But so often the most important thing we can do is to soften our own hearts, to suppress our tendency to want to judge, to want to set people straight, and just listen. Are you willing to trade your desire to change your loved one to curiosity about their experience? I know somebody who is a leader in our church here, has ecclesiastical authority over me, my particular role right now. And a number of his children have left the church. And that causes great heartbreak for him. And again, we have to process that, right? Those key moments we have to process. We have to let ourselves examine the thoughts and the feelings, but then make at a moment of choice, how am I going to handle it? And what I want to say to him is trade your desire to change your son, to change your kids, for their deviation, for getting off of this path. Can you trade in that desire for curiosity? Can you be interested in their journey? Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean you have to like it. But doggone if we're not all on our own journey and our own path, can we develop a curiosity to hear and to listen to other people's journey? Because people aren't going to even be open to us influencing them if they don't first feel heard. So cultivate empathy. We are so afraid of what people might say. You know, I had a little, in fact, I just published a blog post the other day, and it's this girl that comes home from school, 8th grade, and she throws her books on the floor, and her mom says, "Hey, you don't throw books. Come and pick these up, young lady." And Trish turns and runs to her room in tears, and mom says, "Get back here." Fuming and a little worried, mom walks up to her room, and her daughter, she says, "What's going on?" And her daughter says, "I hate Elizabeth and Maria, and I'm never going to talk to them again." Well, this is a key moment, not only for Trish, this is now a key moment for mom, right? Mom's upset. Mom's feeling anxious. Mom's feeling vulnerable. And so her response is, "Oh, you don't mean that. They're your best friends." And Trish says, "We're my best friends. I hope I never see them again." And mom says, "Well, that's not likely. You see them every day at school." And Trish says, "Well, maybe I'm not going back." And mom says, "Well, you're not serious. Listen, what happened? Why are you so upset?" And Trish, through her tears, says, "Because they sat at a different table at lunch. They sat with Meg and Sonia, who I can't stand. I couldn't believe it. That really hurt, Mom." "Mom, did something happen? They wouldn't have made this decision for nothing." And Trish says, "I didn't do anything. Why can't you take my side once in a while? They're just mean and selfish." And mom says, "I'll tell you what, if they're mean and selfish, then you're better off without them. You don't need them as friends. Listen, there are lots of kids at school. Who else could you hang out with?" Now, just notice what mom is doing. Mom who loves her daughter deeply. Mom who loves her daughter deeply is experiencing her own key moment, and she's responding to her daughter to try to fix things, make things all better, because she's afraid to hear what her daughter has to say. What would it be like if her daughter, if she could just sit back and listen and let her daughter pour her heart out to her? Then at the end of that, when they get to a bedrock, then her mom can use honesty skills and skills in reframing and skills in teaching responsibility. But what people need so often is our willingness to hear them, to listen, to join. It's also willingness to join them in what matters to them. If somebody has an addiction, can you join them in what matters to them? Can you see and affirm the good that's inside of them? Are you able to ask them what you can do to support them? All of that is part of cultivating empathy. Let's go on to number 5. Number 5 is instilling and allowing responsibility. Instilling and allowing responsibility is, well, here, let me read what I've written here. Are you ready to let go of your responsibility for your loved one's choices, including the guilt and inadequacy you may feel for their poor choices? We so often make ourselves over-responsible, and not always, but it's easy to feel. Margaret, come back to my example of Margaret and her son Rex. Margaret felt like, as she opened up and expressed herself, what did I do wrong as a parent? And that's so typical. What did I do wrong as a parent? And it's natural when people are making poor choices to ask ourselves that question and to, are you willing to let go of that responsibility, including, are you willing to let go of your guilt and your inadequacy for choices that they are making? Can you surrender your desire to fix people? Will you let them govern their own lives, even when you know a better way? It takes a lot of trust on our part to let people in our lives make decisions that we think are poor decisions. Can you also, as part of that, are you willing to set, or are you willing to let them make mistakes and face the consequences of those mistakes and own their own pain? In other words, letting go of responsibility also includes allowing them to face the consequences of the decisions that we're making. And we have a tendency as codependents to want to step in and make things better for them, but can we let them own? I want to read, this is a quote that my daughter sent me last night. A daughter who, by the way, has dealt with a daughter of her own who has acted out pretty severely and gone through her own some very, very hard times. And, oh, where is it? You know what? I'm not finding it, so I won't. Here we go. Here it is. Okay. This is from a book. Let me just read this to you. It gets at what I'm talking about. The pain of consequences must outweigh the relief the addictive behavior brings. Isn't that true? You know, until the payoffs that they're getting out of their addiction are less than the consequences, than the pain, than the ripoffs that they're getting from their addictive behavior, they're going to continue engaging in the addiction. So the pain of consequences must outweigh the relief of addiction. In our society, we do not handle pain well. We're taught to be sympathetic. When others hurt, we hurt with them. So it's in our own interest to prevent others from hurting or ease their pain as soon as possible if they do hurt. We are taught that pain is bad. If someone hurts us, we should help them get relief. While this teaching was helpful in the case of the Good Samaritan, it's not helpful in the case of addicts. In this paradox-filled disorder, preventing or lessening pain is the most dangerous, destructive thing one can do. Addicts need to be jailed when they break the law. They need to be left where they are when they pass out, even if it's in a car on a cold night. They need to reap any mental, psychological, biological, and spiritual consequence of their behavior short of death. Only through extremely painful, multiple painful consequences does reality crack denial, giving addicts an opportunity to see the disease and make movements toward recovery. This comes from the book Smoke and Mirrors by Dorothy Marie England. Smoke and Mirrors. It's so true. You know, I mean, these skills, this communication that I'm talking about, there are all kinds of paradoxes within it, because on the one hand, we want to nurture empathy and care and soft hearts. And on the other hand, we need to allow consequences to play out. And if we rescue, which I have a tendency to do, if we want to rescue addicts and those that are wrestling with mental health issues from their consequences of their behavior, then we don't help them overcome their addictions. We need to allow them to take responsibility for themselves. Can we learn, the question is, can we learn to be a guide at their side by asking questions and giving them an opportunity to set their own vision and problems? And if you turn on the second page again, if you turn on to the back, there is questions to instill responsibility. And by the way, I want to share with you that you cannot ask these questions if you're not a safe place. You can't ask these questions if, you know, you haven't achieved some kind of bedrock and safety. But if you've been a safe place, if somebody's been able to open up to you and talk and share their heart, then there's a place to start asking questions. What are the consequences if it keeps going? Is that what you want? What do you want? What can you do to get what you want? What problems will you encounter? But notice we're not telling, we're not fixing, we're not solving problems for them. We are asking questions that help them take responsibility for themselves and chart their own path forward. And there are many, many questions besides these, but we play a role of being a guide on the side instead of dictating and telling them. But anyway, a few thoughts about instilling responsibility, and I'm looking at the time, it's 12:06 or 1:06. Finally, I can't use my fingers to count. Number 6, speak truthfully. Speak truthfully. Trust your perceptions, your intuition, your revelation. Trust and be willing to speak the truth to the addict. Now, timing matters somewhat in this, but here's the question. Are you willing to disclose your honest thoughts and feelings while also being empathetic to the feelings and point of view of others? And that honest sharing might just be, I'm just feeling devastated today, period. I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling sadness. I'm feeling that may be as far as it goes. But are you willing to disclose you're honest? Are you willing to bring more honesty to your relationship? Disclose your honest thoughts and feelings, not in a dualistic kind of way, not in a way that communicates I'm right and you're wrong, but in a way that says, this is my experience of the world and I just need to give you this information. Can you advocate for yourself when you're not being heard? And I think particularly important for us as codependents also, can we advocate for ourselves? Are you willing to get sensitive issues out in the open? Are you willing to give honest feedback when you see harmful behavior? And when I say honest feedback, again, the timing matters here because you don't want it to simply fall on deaf ears. But feedback sounds like what I see happening and the consequences that I see are. Excuse me. Notice how different that is from wanting to tell somebody what to do, or wanting to fix things, or wanting to preach or lecture. Here is what I see happening. These are the consequences that I see. What do you think about that? Oftentimes people aren't going to be open. They're not ready yet. But I can come from a place of honesty. This is what I see. These are the concerns that I have. Do you have a process for working through conflict to arrive at win-win solutions? So the truth is we go back and forth between these skills: empathy, responsibility, honesty. I believe that all skills that are empowering for ourselves and for our loved ones, skills that are involved in creating meaningful conversations, have to do with those 3 principles. The principle of empathy, and at times I'm expressing empathy and willingness to sit back and listen and create safe conditions. At times I'm willing to be honest and tell the truth about my experience and the consequences and what I see in the behavior of someone else. And at times I'm also willing to allow responsibility and to even instill responsibility by learning to ask questions or give feedback. There's one other process, but I think skill that I was thinking, but it's 1:09. And maybe Stephanie, this is a good time to kind of pause and.
I personally would love to hear the other one, but let me just ask if I don't have any other questions in the chat right now.
Okay.
And so if there's anybody who does want to ask a question, but we will have a few minutes right at the end too.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
go ahead and move forward.
So what I want to do then is share my screen. Let's see if I can make this happen again. Let's see. Sorry for. Sharing. Okay. Can you see my screen?
I don't see your screen.
Okay, let me pull it onto my other. I have 2 screens up here.
I know you're tricky. You got lots of going on over. That's awesome.
Now, can you see it?
Nope.
Oh, what's wrong here?
Sometimes Zoom is tricky when it comes to sharing screens.
Now can you see it?
Yeah, well, now we can see it, but it's got the list of OneDrive. And it says there's a highlight on 4-step communication process.
Okay, hang on. What about now?
Nope.
It says you are screen sharing.
You are sharing a screen, but it's not the
Oh, it's my
freedom.
family probably.
That now I see the 4-step communication process on one side,
Oh, okay, let me,
but maximize that. There you go.
okay, good.
Great.
So this is a process, this is an honesty process. This is a process for opening up a dialogue, oftentimes when there's conflict, something that you need to resolve. And so it's a 4-step process that starts with what I saw or heard, initiated by me. I go to somebody and I say, this is what I saw or heard. Number 2, what I made up about it. In other words, the story I told myself about what I saw or heard. Number 3, how I felt about it. And number 4, this is what would help me feel better. The key is to use few words. So here's step 1, what I saw or heard. These are just the facts. This is what a video camera would show. And by the way, these steps are found on the back side of the handout I gave you. These are just the facts. What a video camera would show, you're stating what happened without any interpretation. It's specific, observable behavior. So here's an example. When I was discussing my day, you walked away and got a drink of water from the fridge. Just factual, to the point, not any moralizing preaching, just few words. Step 2, what I made up about it. This is how you interpreted the event. This is the spin you put on it. It's important to discuss the story you made up versus telling your partner what you think they intended or what they felt. When you walked away, I told myself that my feelings don't matter to you. Step number 3, how I felt about it. You state your emotions. These are single word statements like I felt anger, hurt, sadness, disappointment. And if your first emotion is anger, it's helpful to get below the surface and figure out what's deeper than the anger, like fear or anxiety or pain. So I felt hurt and alone. And step number 4, this is what would help me feel better. Let your partner know what you would like them to do next time and how to avoid the same thing from happening again. Next time, please let me know that you're still listening, or ask me if I need help with the kids. Here are a few guidelines for the speaker. Ask your partner or your loved one if they're ready to listen so that you're not just dumping. You want to make sure that they know that you want to go through these 4 steps. Remember that your motivation is that you love them and your goal is to improve your relationship and communication. Your intent has to be positive. Number 3, take responsibility for yourself, your needs, your feelings, your thoughts. Number 4, let go of an outcome. You may not get the response that you want, but you know that you came into the conversation with a strong sense of self. Let go of the outcome. What you feel good about is the fact that you have taken the initiative to express yourself in a kind and loving, but also a direct and helpful way. And here are some guidelines for the listener. Try not to rebut or explain, but just listen to what your partner is communicating. Let the person know what you heard, and let your partner know what you will do. Don't lead with what you won't do. All right. So again, I've given you the 4 steps. I learned this process from Terry Real, a marriage therapist. Terry Real didn't make it up, and I can't remember. I should have looked up the name of the woman. If you want to look it up online, I think she calls it the feedback loop. If you want more information, the feedback loop. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I share that with you because it's a what? It's a skill. It's one aspect of honesty, way of being honest. So just to recap, and then we'll take questions. We're talking today about the 6. Can you name them? Number 1. I'm seeing if I can name them. Stay in your lane. Are you clear about what that means? I need to know where that boundary is and what I'm responsible for and what my loved one is responsible for. And the clearer we become about that, the more helpful we can be. Number 2, strengthen your sense of self. Strengthen your sense of self. The more I can grow myself in terms of my trust and my knowledge of what I think and feel and think and what I stand for and what I value, the stronger I become as a person, the more helpful I'm going to be in our relationship. Number 3, learn to process our key moments. Those key moments are those moments when we're upset and we get stuck. And that's actually the work that we do to become more emotionally and spiritually mature people. Those have to do with self. And then the 3 other skills that we talked about, number 1 or number 4, empathy, nurture empathy, learn to be a safe place, learn to listen and hear people rather than want to step in and fix or judge. Number 5, principle number 5, instill and allow responsibility. Let people take responsibility for their side of that line, right? That boundary. Let them take responsibility. Don't rescue them. Don't bail them out. Let them face fully the consequences of choices that they're making. And number 6, practice honesty or tell the truth. Speak the truth. Learn to speak the truth in your relationship. Now, again, I want to say that this is lifetime. It's ongoing. None of us, we are far from perfect. My hope was to give you a template to say, here are some guidelines. These are some things, hopefully, that will be helpful for you in your relationship with somebody that is suffering, in your relationship with somebody that has an addiction or a serious mental illness. What can you do that is helpful versus whatever we might do that is harmful? So with that, Stephanie, let me.
Oh, that was excellent. Yes. And I love what you've given us. It's so clear. One of the things that I've experienced in codependency is that I want to show up effectively in my relationships, and I just don't know how to do that. So even though this is a lifelong process, when I am exposed to information like this, I have clarity so that I can be really intentional about how I show up and how I process my own emotions. And so that was such a I'm so glad we recorded this because I want to listen to this a couple more times. We do have some questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and start asking some of these questions. So first of all, Emily says, I'm wondering about strategies for self-validation after we get all the information. So what are some strategies for self-validation?
Oh, and self-validation is so important. I love the whole concept today of self-compassion, and there's a really good book by, hang on. I highly recommend this. Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, written by Kristin Neff and Christopher Dermer. One of the most important things we can do is learn to affirm ourselves, and not just the good, but even have compassion for ourselves when we go through difficult times and when we blow it and when we make mistakes. And, she teaches a 3-part process. One is to become mindful, because if we're not mindful, we're unconscious, right? We're not aware of what's happening. Number 2 is to talk to ourselves as we would talk to a good friend. If I blow it, let's say with my child, and we have a tendency to beat up on ourselves, right? We have a tendency to be really, really hard on ourselves. But if a friend came to me and if that friend shared with me, kind of poured their heart out, I had this conversation with my teenager and it didn't go very well, and I said some things that I regret, how would I respond to that friend? With what kind of kindness? Can I talk to myself as I would talk to a friend? And then the third thing is to recognize that there are a lot of people who are going through the same thing that I am. There are millions of people out there, by the way, whose children or whose spouses or whomever, loved ones, are struggling with an addiction or struggling with mental illnesses. Anyway, that's one thing, to learn self-compassion, to learn to take care of ourselves in very basic ways, to make sure that I'm eating properly, to make sure I'm getting enough sleep, to make sure that I'm exercising, to make sure that I'm, just basic self-care, let alone speaking about the spa experience. There are other things that I can do, though, to take care of myself because they bring me joy, whether it's reading. For me, it's being out of doors. One of the reasons we're living in Cedar City, Utah. One of the reasons that we live here is because I love the out of doors. And we love getting away and hiking, and I love running, some of the trails around here. Find things that nourish your soul, that nurture you. It's important to do those on a regular basis. It's not being selfish. I don't know, does that address the question?
I think that was a great answer. And those are great tips. And the thing about it is that's what this work is. Like, it's a continual work. It's not a check it off the box.
Right.
So to have a resource. And somebody was asking in the chat, the authors again.
Look up the name Kristin, Kristin, Neff, Neff.
Okay.
The Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook. She's written some other books. I like this. She's written one called Radical Self-Compassion, or anyway, my daughter's read it. I haven't read it. She's told me she doesn't like it as well as she likes this one. I take her word for it.
And your daughter's the one that sent you that quote too. I'm wondering if we should have your daughter speak also. She's great.
Well, she knows a lot because she's been through the process. I mean, they have a daughter that at 9 years old was sneaking out, running away, and, went through drugs and alcohol and put her in different residential programs. And she ran from those programs and lived on the street for a time. And today she is doing so well.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah,
She has a baby.
Oh,
And
helps.
Anyway, but yeah, so my daughter Melinda has just been through a lot, and they've done a lot of their own, work.
That's so great. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, we've got Claudia asked, tools for overcoming triggers. For example, my son was using drugs and arrested in a particular house. I can't drive by that house without a trigger of heartache and reliving that day.
Wow. I can appreciate how hard that is. And I think that a starting place, and this may not be what you want to hear, but a starting place is to let yourself feel that grief.
Okay.
Lean into it. And maybe with a loved one with you, maybe on your own, maybe with a therapist, maybe, the best way to do it. But what I want to suggest is that, allow yourself to feel the grief, allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself to feel the emotion that's related to driving by that house, to just be honest with yourself about how much that hurts. And as you let yourself grieve in that way, as you let yourself feel those feelings, my experience is they begin to diminish. They don't maybe never go away entirely, but they don't have so much of a grip. They don't have so much power over you. So let yourself grieve. Then perhaps write in a journal, share it with somebody. Find a way to take it from in here out, to externalize it, to not keep it inside. Here's a technique that you can use. And, there's some science to back this up. Take 3 days during a week and write for 20 minutes about all the pain that caused, what happened with your son in that house, all the pain that you feel about being that house. Write for 15 or 20 minutes, no more. Then stop, put it aside, get on with your day. Then a day or 2 days later, come back and journal again, write again about everything that happened and the pain that you feel. And then get up, put it aside, then come back a few days later, write about that pain again. I mean, we know that people that have been through trauma, people that have experienced trauma in their lives, this is a process that helps them overcome that trauma. And this is trauma. I mean, this is trauma. And so a process for overcoming trauma is to write. Limit it. No more than 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, 3 separate days. Something that's really just hooked you emotionally, something that you're having such a hard time letting go of. So in addition to just giving yourself that space to feel what you're feeling, lean into those feelings. Yeah. Give yourself an opportunity to journal.
Yeah, all those things are exactly what we are guided to do in recovery, and we know that whatever we repress, it ends up persisting, or what you resist persists. So that's
Exactly.
you got to feel it to heal it. That's what a lot of people say. So
Yeah, feel it to heal it. That's so true. And we don't want to, do we? We want to scroll our phones. We want to go to social media. We do so many things to distract ourselves from what we feel. Now, I don't think we need to get stuck in the feelings, and live there forever, but we need to be able to feel it. And then challenge the story that we're telling ourselves, and then stand up and take action. That's a 3-step process I go through. Number 1, I allow myself to feel, and I just lie down on the ground or on a bed, and I let the feelings come. I don't try to resist it. I just let myself feel the physical sensations and the emotions. And then I look at the thoughts that are associated, because those feelings are related to, there is thinking, there's a story that I'm telling myself. So I allow myself to notice all of the thoughts. And then I stand up and I take action. And the action may be directly related to the healing that I need to do, or the action may not. It's just that I get back to work and start doing something to get active again, to engage in life again. So feel, examine the thoughts, take action.
I love that. Challenging our stories about things. I just took about that because I have a relationship that's painful for me, and I haven't really challenged that story too much. So really appreciate that. Okay, it looks like that I think that's it. We had a few people asking about the quote that you shared. Would it be possible either for me to get that quote from you or get the page number on that so that we could share that with our class?
You bet. Pages 70 to 71, Smoke and Mirrors, but I would be happy to forward this text to you also, Stephanie.
That would be so amazing. Okay, and then Dee Dee just asked real quick, can you repeat that? Feel, challenge the thought, and then what was the other you said?
Take action.
Yeah.
Get into action.
Okay, great.
So, feel, examine and challenge your thinking, the story you're telling. And sometimes I don't even challenge the story. I just notice it. I let myself be aware. What are all the thoughts that are coming up related to this key moment? And then get into action.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're out of time. This has been so helpful to me, and I know it has been to the others on this class. I'm super grateful to you, Roger, for your preparation, not just what you prepared for our class, but the person that you've been that you have been all these years and the experiences all the times that you've leaned into your own feelings, all the times that you've taken care of yourself so that you could be able to show up in a place for us and the many other people that you've helped. And I just really appreciate and express my heartfelt gratitude. We are going to go ahead and have a closing prayer. Lots of people are saying in the chat how fabulous this is. And I will, if any of you have any gratitude to share with Roger, you can send it on to me and I'll compile a list of our gratitude for him. I do that for our speakers sometimes. So if any of you want to do that, just reach out to me and email me or text me and I will put some gratitude together for him. But we are going to go ahead and close with Rebecca giving us a closing prayer. And then Roger, if you wouldn't mind, after the prayer, actually after the prayer, we can stop the recording and then I will take host back. And then I usually let people stay on after to talk to me. If you're available, they can talk to you. Otherwise, we will let you go and I will stay on the call afterwards.
Okay.
So awesome. Okay, so Rebecca.
Yes, thank you so much. I love this so much. Okay. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we are so grateful today for Stephanie for leading this meeting, and we're grateful for Roger Allen for presenting these principles to us in our lives. We pray, Lord, that we will be able to bring unity and closeness to our loved ones, and that we might be able to apply these principles in our lives, that we might be able to be a light that shines throughout the world, and that we will be able to help those by helping ourselves first. We ask you that you will bless everyone in this room and bless our loved ones, that they will be able to have guardian angels to protect them and be able to lead and guide them and lead and guide us, Lord. We are so grateful for this class and being able to have the wisdom that we gain to apply it to our lives. And we say these things, Lord, and do it in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, if you can push stop record.
Yep.
Great.